We are talking with music legend, 14-time Grammy winner Jerry Douglas. Jerry, you're coming to the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount tomorrow. I know you were there with your group, the Earls of Leicester, last year. Was it such a good experience that you just had to get back? I know musicians rave about the sound in there and the great audiences and all that stuff.
Yeah, in fact, I played it. I was the second act in there. And so I've played there with my band, with this part of this band. We were the second act in. I think that who was it opened the thing, the whole thing? What are they called? The girls. Anyway, we were the second act in the building, and I loved it. And I've been back there a couple times with the Earl, so this was like the fifth time I played there, something like that. I really like playing there. Great audience, wonderful, salt of the earth people around there. So I'm for playing for those folks anytime.
Great stuff. We'll see if we can start a Harvester Hall of Fame, and you'll probably be the first entry in there since you got the volume anyway. You've been there so many times now.
Yes, I'm going for quantity, not quality.
Well, I think when it comes to your recording work with other artists, you've got quantity and quality. It seems like you've been on everybody's albums. Tell us some of the bigger ones that you've been on. I know Paul Simon and guys like that are in there, but tell us some of the oddball ones too. Did you ever walk into a session and say, "Wait, you sure they want me on this album?"
Oh yeah, and I walked into a session recently, and I didn't really know. I had an inkling, but they didn't really tell me who it was, and it was Don Henley, and I didn't know what we were going to do, and we ended up recording Tobacco Road and like 3 other songs, and then he said, "This is the last session on this record," and then like 6 months later, I got another call, and it was Don Henley again. I thought, "Oh, you were finished, man." And he said, "No, this is the last session for this record." And that turned out that he did like a couple more after that. But what we did that time did make the record. So he was searching hard, to find out what it was. But that wasn't probably, that wasn't the strangest one. I mean, I did a session one time for a guy out in Oklahoma, and he started into this song called "I've Got a Texas-Sized Heartache." And I just started laughing, And he said, "Can you play a little more like Oswald?" And I said, "I've got his phone number if you'd like it." and I packed up and left. I thought, this is not going to do either one of us any good, so I probably should leave right now. But there have been some really, really weird ones, but there have been some great experiences, in with James Taylor and Lyle Lovett and Garth Brooks. And my son just a couple of days ago asked me for Garth Brooks tickets in Oklahoma City, and Garth was playing there that day, and I thought, "Oh, Grant, why did you call me today about tickets for today?" So I emailed Garth, and he didn't get the message because he was smart and left his laptop at home while he did his gig. So he emailed me a while ago and said, "Oh man, I'm sorry I missed you," and all this stuff. But things like that happen. But yeah, there have been so many sessions, man, that are crazy. Like the Ray Charles called me at my house one time. I couldn't believe it was Ray Charles, it was the last. I was walking out of the house. I sold the house. I was leaving for the last time, and I just ripped the phone cord out of the wall as soon as we hung up. That's it for this house. That's the last call I want to get in this house. I want to leave it clean. So
I'm guessing when Ray calls you to do a session, you feel like you've pretty much made it at that point, right?
Well, you feel like you've made it after you've gone and done the session, and he's smiling.
Right.
Then everything's okay. You're a nervous wreck until that point, because you really don't know. I mean, he called me, so he wants me, but you just don't know. I mean, every time I go into a session, I think this is the day they're going to find out, and I don't know what I'm doing. But
hasn't happened yet, huh?
I keep fooling them. Yeah, I've still got them fooled.
Well, yep. In all seriousness, all that work with all those different artists and different producers and engineers and all that kind of stuff, that has to have helped you long along the way now that you're doing some production and those sorts of things, right?
Right. I mean, you know what works and what doesn't, and it all depends on who you're working with too. You know, you've got to take personalities into account. Almost have to have a psychology degree to be a producer. You have to be a referee. I don't have a whistle, but I sometimes wish I had one. But you know, sometimes you just have to separate the bandmates, get them off each other's backs, and go, well, let's compromise on this. You know, it's a therapy session more than a recording session. So,
I'm
yeah,
sorry. Go ahead, Jerry.
After this long, I have kept notes on, you know, the best producers that I've worked for, and they all just sort of hire the right people and leave them alone.
You see yourself doing more of that as your career goes on? I mean, I'm sure there's still going to be a balance between your own touring and your own albums, but also some of that production for other people too?
Yeah, I go through phases where I produce a lot, and then right now, though, I'm really involved in my own band and producing that, you know, and making that work and changing songs for sets, you know, and doing it live is different than recording it, you know. And when you record a new song, you don't really know it that well. You've played it a few times and recorded it in the studio, but you don't really know the song until you get it out in front of people and you get their reaction from it, and you flesh out the tune, and that's when you really learn the song, and that's what we're doing right now. So this is the do or die situation. We're out here playing these songs live with the full band, and they're coming alive, and we're learning the songs, and we're taking chances with them. And it's exciting all over again. Yeah, fun.
Well, let me ask you about your songwriting. I mean, where does the inspiration come from? Is it with those full band kind of jams things start happening, or do you sit down and compose stuff at a desk? Do the melodies just pop into your head when you're in the shower, or is it maybe a mix of all the above?
It's a mix of all the above. I mean, music, when you play as much music as I do, it's coming at you all the time. I can be having a conversation with my wife about disciplining one of the kids, and all of a sudden I'll just leave. leave the conversation, and she knows it. She's got my number at this point, so she knows you're not listening to me. You're writing a song, and she's right. But it does come at you. I do sit down and I record phrases and ideas as often as I can. And then when it's time to record, I sit down and go through all of those things that I've selected over, you know, I don't like to record more often for myself than like every 2 years or something like that. And so I go through all of that stuff and see what fits, what put things together and hang together, because you usually think in a stream of consciousness, you know, and that just goes on and on because you're trying to write a song. You're trying to write a different song. But James Taylor told me once, he said, we're all just writing the same song and trying to make it better over and over and over again. And he's been successful at that, so why not use that as the example, you know?
Well, yeah, that's definitely an understatement as far as his success goes. And again, back to the fact that you've worked with so many people, I guess you get to pick the brains of all those great songwriters. Let's change gears and talk about your playing and your playing style a little bit. I know I've heard you say in other interviews that you grew up with all the bluegrass greats, you know, the Ralph Stanleys and the Bill Monroes and all those types. And then as you got older, you started diving into to the Beatles and some of that stuff. And I think I heard you say one time you heard Stevie Ray Vaughan once, and that just sort of changed everything for you. Talk about those influences and maybe some other folks that have influenced you.
Well, I grew up the son of a steel worker, so he got up to go to work the same time I was getting up to go to school, so I was listening mostly to Flat and Scruggs every morning. Either if we couldn't get the live radio show from Nashville, we'd put a record on the record player and we'd listen to that, have breakfast, and get ready to go. And he'd go off to work and my brother and I'd go to school, and I'd be listening to Flat Strokes in the morning, but I grew up close to Cleveland, Ohio, so at night I was listening to rock stations on the radio in my room. So I was confused. I mean, I loved both kinds of music, and I was trying to figure out how to marry them, put them together. And I think I've finally done that, at this age. And it's been a steady process of putting all these things together and listening to different people, like playing bluegrass and listening to Josh Graves and Mike Aldridge for my own instrument. But also, they were the only guys I really had to listen to that I could get really good stuff from, good information. And so I started listening to other instruments, and I started listening to Clapton and the Beatles and the Stones and everybody, and just listening to different instruments and the way they worked in bands, even pianos, and percussion and all kinds of things like that, and how this stuff worked. The good parts that jumped out at you, the hooks of the song, all these kind of things, they all go into making a good song and good music. And, I will say, I went to a Letterman show in New York City one time, David Letterman TV show, and Stevie Ray Vaughan was the artist, sort of the guest artist that night in the band, and he was at the height of his career, and he was loud and brash. And poor Paul, standing there at those keyboards, he was in the line of fire, and he was wincing. It was painful over there. There was a pain going on every time Stevie Ray would fire off some solo. I know Paul wanted to run to the next room because it was so loud, but it was so good and tasty, and it was just the best. It was so wonderful. It was such an experience, and those things stick with me. And like the first time I heard Stephen Grappelli and Django Reinhardt, that kind of jazz, and then the first time I heard Weather Report and Chick Corea, that kind of music, and the whole time I'm still thinking about Don Reno and Red Smiley and and Bill Monroe and Ralph Stanley and the Country Gentlemen and all this stuff. And I'm playing in bluegrass bands, but I'm coming off, there are things coming out of me that aren't the standard licks you would think you would hear from somebody playing this instrument. So I've been sort of a surprise all my life, out here trying to create a new style on an instrument. That's what I strive for.
Well, and you've put together a band full of musicians that can keep up with your style. I know they have to have big ears too to be able to follow your lead. Talk about the band that you have coming to the Harvester tomorrow night. I know you're pretty proud of these guys.
I'm extremely proud of this band. It's just it's come together. Doug Belote is a drummer from down in Louisiana. He's from Lafayette, but he lives in New Orleans, and he plays with New Orleans cats all the time when he's not on the road with me. And he was just in Russia playing with a sax player, a trumpet player. And they were all over Moscow, St. Petersburg, and all these places. And we all bring back something to the nest, when we go away like that. He's just an amazing drummer and fits me to a T, because I write strange. I write, if you just listen to, if you try to count out some of these things, like a lot of musicians try to count out and write down, some of these lines, some of these little parts, I say, don't count it. Don't count it. Listen to it as a phrase. Mike Seal is an electric guitar player that he's new to the band, and so are the two horn players. I've got a saxophone and a trumpet. Jamel Mitchell plays saxophone, and his father was one of the original Memphis Horns, and his uncle Willie Mitchell produced all those Al Green records. And his father wrote all the horn charts for all of those records. And you can just, you sit down and you listen to those records, and most of what's going on are the D3 organ and the horn part. Those are what really, and Al's little, his strange voice, and not a lot of words in the songs, but a lot of things going on. And Jamel's got that. He's got the gene. He's inherited that. Vance Thompson is playing the trumpet, and he teaches trumpet at the University of Tennessee, but he's in a position where he can travel with me anytime he wants to. So I have him made. And Christian Settlemeyer plays violin, fiddle, depending on what kind of music we're playing. And but he's very schooled. He knows who Stuart Duncan is. He knows who Benny Martin is. He knows who somebody like Stephen Grappelli or somebody like that. He knows Steph Smith. He knows. He's heard everybody. He's heard every kind of music. He was a classical player when he was a kid, and he's so schooled, but he knows bluegrass music, and he knows my stuff. And he has his own duet show he does, 10-string symphony that he tours with. And so, when these guys are unavailable, we kind of have tried to plan out the year so where I can be with the Earls of Leicester for part of the year, and for part of the, we keep splitting it up. It's like a big pie. And the Earls of Leicester and the Jerry Douglas Band are pretty evenly divided throughout the year. And then you can throw in the wild card of Alison Krauss or who knows, Elvis Costello or something like that. Or I might go out solo, and I love doing that. So it's a crowded life. And but I do spend time at home. Don't think that I don't have some home time too. So, and I cherish that, and that's special stuff to me. And when I'm home, I'm home. I don't go out and watch shows or anything like that. I stay close to home.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Was you're in Annapolis tonight, and you're going to be in our area tomorrow at the Harvester. When this tour is done, maybe a little time to decompress at home, and then get in the studio and work on these songs that you were talking about.
Well, when I get home, I have we get to Nashville, and we're playing a radio show called Music City Roots, and I guess it's also a TV show at this point, or it's streamed. And then the next day, I go in the studio for 3 days with Allison. And so I'm really not sure what's going on. And as soon as I get finished with that, I fly out to Red Rocks in Colorado, where I'm playing with Lyle Lovett and the Nitty Gritty Dirt Band at Red Rocks. And then going straight to Rocky Grass, a big bluegrass festival outside of Boulder. So I'll be in Colorado next week, but before I get to that, there's a few miles to cover and a lot of notes to play on this side of the Mississippi.
Well, great stuff, Jerry. We know you're busy. You just mentioned all that stuff. We'll let you get to it. We appreciate you stopping by. We look forward to hearing you tomorrow night at the Harvester Performance Center in Rocky Mount.
Well, I'm looking forward to it. I love playing there. I love the people. All the people that take care of that place are so nice and helpful and just sweet people. And there's nothing better than that. Everybody likes a little homecoming once in a while.